home. We're going to be cooking in my kitchen today, and you're going to hear my dog Bailey barking in the background. We're making cheeseburger quesadillas next, and the ingredients you're going to need are hamburger. You're going to be needing shredded cheddar cheese, ketchup, mayo, onion, ranch dressing, shredded lettuce, I think I'm missing something, oh, salt, and tortillas. You will like these, they're delightful. Okay, so the very first ingredient, if you'll look on your lab plan, the very first step, it says to brown beef in skillet over medium-high heat with onion. Well, the first thing we need to do is to prepare the onion before we start cooking the meat, otherwise the meat will probably get cooked before the onion is finished. So we have to get a nifty little knife here, ignore my messy drawer. These were the knives I was talking about that I love so much. So the first thing we always do is to wash our vegetables. So I'm going to wash my vegetables, and I'm going to kind of peel off the onion skins as I go. I'll end up peeling more off too. This doesn't take a whole lot of onion. And when the recipe doesn't say any specific type of onion, you can pretty much use whatever your favorite one is. This one is a white onion. Yours, I think, are going to be yellow onions when you start. So I learned something new from watching a cooking show. I have been cutting onion the incorrect way. Supposedly, if you make your first slice in this, whatever part that is, it will prevent you from tearing up as much, which is kind of interesting. Ah, I cut myself. Just kidding, I didn't. Sorry. Then, I'm going to make sure that I don't have any ick part on here. I'm going to have all the onions sliced for you guys ahead of time, but I always try to get rid of anything that I don't like. So I'm going to just slice, you're going to be needing 2 tablespoons, which is not very much. So I will just chop about as much as what I think you guys are going to need, and I'll finish chopping my onion later. So we want pretty small pieces. I can kind of line them up here and do a whole bunch of them together. I need a manicure when I'm going to have my fingers in pictures. Okay, that's probably about 2 tablespoons, I would guess. You guys are going to be measuring perfectly, and so will I. Okay, so I'm going to leave those onions aside because I'll finish chopping these later when I finish the meal for my family. Welcome back. Okay, step 1 again was to brown beef in skillet over medium-high heat with onion. So I'm ready for that step now that I have gotten my onion here. These will be on the supply table in a bowl. Obviously, you won't be using your fingers to get them. You'll have little tongs. So I'm going to go ahead and put my onion in with my meat. 2 tablespoons of that. See, I have a lot left over here. The onion is going to give it the flavor. So if you're not an onion lover, my daughter can attest to this, that it is, and I'm going to turn it to medium high. Mine says medium. I don't remember what your oven says, so I will check that when we're at school. Sometimes I'll make it go up just a little bit just to get it going. But anyway, back to the onion flavoring. It will really help enhance the flavor and bring a lot into it. My daughter doesn't like onion, but when we cook with it, she will say that it definitely does taste a lot better. So don't skip that step. So we're going to let that kind of cook, and I will be back with you in just one moment. So as your meat is browning, you're going to want to take your spoon. A lot of the recipes will even say to take a fork to kind of break up those chunks of meat, because you don't want to have big old meat chunks in most of your ground beef recipes. So I'm just kind of taking my spoon and going to town on this ground beef. Okay, now I'm making this dish for my family right now, so the amounts are a lot bigger than what you guys will be making. You'll have student samples, but just wanted to kind of point that out to you guys. But I'm just kind of and we'll see it start getting brown. We don't want pink, so we're going to keep cooking it until it is pink or brown, not pink, brown. That's why we're browning. And we'll be back. it done yet? No, it's not because it's pink. We'll be back. Welcome back. Okay, so as you can see, the hamburger is nice, and look at those tiny little pieces, and there's no pink left in it, and that's what we want to see. Now, if you'll look at step 2 in your directions, it tells you that you need to strain the hamburger into a strainer so that we can get rid of the grease. What I've purchased, however, as far as hamburger goes, is a very lean, 93% lean, and so you're not going to need to do that, most likely. When we look here, I don't have a whole lot of grease going on in there, okay? I could strain it. I'm gonna skip that step because there's just hardly anything there. If we do need to strain it, what you would need is your strainer. That's this one that has the little tiny holes. And then you would need a bowl because the grease can't go into your sink, okay? It'll ruin the pipes. So you would take your strainer, which the ones at school are a lot smaller than this. I'm going to turn the heat down for right now. You would take the meat and you could spoon it into your strainer. Most likely, I think that the whole skillet tipping would be kind of hard for you to do, and it's very hot grease. You have to remember that everything in here is very, very hot. So if we were needing to strain, if you're making this at home and you're not cooking with very lean meat, you would probably want to spoon this in, and then the oil, the grease, will go into the bowl. Once it's in the bowl, you will put the grease into the trash can, okay? But we're not, once it's cooled off, thank you. Not when it's hot, when it's cooled off. So now I've turned that down just for right now so we can kind of look at our recipe. I've turned it down to low because I don't want my hamburger to burn. So now, if you'll follow me over to this area, because that's where I have my recipe. So step 3 says to pour the meat back into the skillet. Well, it's already there. Add in ranch seasoning, cheddar cheese, mayo, and ketchup, and salt. Stir until the cheese starts to melt over medium-low heat. I've already moved mine to a little bit lower. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with my ranch seasoning, which I haven't purchased yours yet. Yours might look a little different. It might not be in a packet. It might be in a bowl. So I'm going to want 2 tablespoons. Let me find my kitchen scissors. Open this. And I'm going to go ahead and pour it right into a cup so I can use my tablespoons easier. This is where you will use a leveler to make sure that you have even tablespoons. If you get too much of this, it becomes really kind of strong and nasty. And if you use too little, it's kind of boring. Okay, so I have my 1 tablespoon. That's going to be too much, so I need to get my leveler, which, remember how I told you guys I don't have a leveler. So I'm using the back end of a knife here. Okay, not as perfect as what you will have. I'm going to do 2 of those. So this one goes in, voila. Okay. And back over here. Voila. Then it calls for cheddar cheese. And if you guys look, it says 1.5 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. Yours will be in a bowl with tongs and all of that good stuff. That's a lot of cheese. Holy macaroni. Okay, probably a little bit more here. You know how I like to be generous on the cheese. Okay, there's my 1. Boom. And 1/2 cup, which I went and poured this in. Hold on, stay right there. Oh, we need just a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so that would be my 1.5 cups. Bing! Give it a little stir just because it's kind of fun to see that. Okay, next is the mayo, and it calls for 1 tablespoon of mayo, which I have right here. Ignore the fact that my lid is cracked. I dropped it. It's fabulous. And again, I can use my leveler to make sure that I don't have too much. My cheat sheet of a leveler. Okay. I need my rubber scraper, which I can't find right now, so I'm going to use a spoon to make sure I get all the goods out. Gotta add some fat in there. Okay, next is the ketchup. Okay, then it also calls for 1 tablespoon ketchup. I'm at the tail end of my ketchup, people. Cross-contamination. Okay, then we go, put that in, la-di-da, get all the goodies, scrape, scrape. Okay, and final is 1/4 teaspoon salt. Okay, so you would be doing this over a custard cup so that if you get extra on accident, it doesn't end up being too salty like our twice baked potatoes were. They were nasty. I'm pretty skilled with my salt shaker, so I think I'm okay. So there's our 1/4 teaspoon salt. So if you look at your recipe to see what I need to be doing with this now, the next step will tell us what to do, which my cameraman is going to read that next step to us.
Stir until cheese starts to melt over medium-low heat. Put lettuce on 1/2 of a tortilla and spoon some of the meat mixture into the tortilla.
Okay, let's pause there for a second. Nice reading, good job. Okay, if you could smell this, it is delightful. Absolutely delightful. So you'll notice that I've been using tongs for my whatchamacallits here. So I've kind of looked and there is a little bit of brown. I'm at an angle that's hard to get here. It's starting to get a little brown on this side, so to flip it, this is kind of the challenging part. I could leave it here and just cook the one side, and it's not a big deal. I like to have mine kind of brown on both sides, so I'm kind of scooping it up here so the ingredients don't fall out the bottom. So I've got a taco, and then I can turn it this way. And so you can see it's that beautiful golden brown color. I will tell you, when you guys are doing this, notice that you have 2 skillets. I might recommend starting to heat your skillet a little bit earlier than when you need it. Like maybe while 2 of you are making this, the others can be getting another skillet ready. I was curious why we weren't spraying with Pam, but as you can see, it's turned out just fine. If you notice that like your tortilla is sticking to your skillet, you could always get the Pam out and spray that. No problem. So once it's brown on both sides, I will put it in my plate and I can cut it up either using a pizza cutter or a knife, and then you guys can enjoy. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Cooking with Karla. Bye now. Welcome back. So if you could smell this, it's really, really yummy. You can tell that the cheese is melted. This is gonna be what it ends up looking like, okay? Then we're ready to actually make the quesadilla part. So I'm gonna get my tortillas, and that next step, so to put lettuce on 1/2 of a tortilla and spoon some of the meat mixture into the tortilla, fold in half and place on medium-low heat on a clean skillet just until tortilla browns, okay? So I'm going to take one of these. This is where you're going to need a second skillet. And you notice in the lettuce, it just says a handful of lettuce. So you're going to be using whatever amount makes you happiest, okay? So I'm going to get another skillet here. Never mind, it's okay. It's okay, everything's fine. Okay, so now we're ready for our next skillet here. And does the recipe say what heat to put it on? Let's check. Medium low heat. So I'm gonna go, never mind, it's fine. Now I'm gonna go to medium low, probably about right here. Okay, I have my tortilla in there. Be thinking about what we'll use to turn it. What tool. I'm a lettuce lover, so I'm gonna do a little bit here. Okay, set my lettuce here. And then I'm gonna take my spoon. Now, I have turned my hamburger to low. So you're gonna wanna do that because it's continuing to cook. You don't wanna leave it on medium-high where it can get overdone. And this takes a little bit of time. So I'm gonna take this and kinda put a spoonful here. If you put too much, it'll just kind of go globbing out of the sides, but you want to have enough to be able to enjoy it. Stay right there. I'm going to get my tongs that are probably dirty. Okay, so now I'm going to take my tortilla like so, and we're just going to let it sit for a little while, checking every once in a while. You can just kind of lift it up to see, and once you see the underside kind of starting to look a little brown, not burnt looking but just brown, then we'll want to turn it. We'll be back in a moment. So you'll notice that I've been using tongs for my whatchamacallits here. So I've kind of looked, and there is a little bit of brown. I'm at an angle that's hard to get here. It's starting to get a little brown on this side, so to flip it, this is kind of the challenging part. I could leave it here and just cook the one side, and it's not a big deal. I like to have mine kind of brown on both sides, so I'm kind of scooping it up here so the ingredients don't fall out the bottom. So I've got a taco, and then I can turn it this way. And so you can see it's that beautiful golden brown color. I will tell you, when you guys are doing this, notice that you have 2 skillets. I might recommend starting to heat your skillet a little bit earlier than when you need it. Like maybe while 2 of you are making this, the others can be getting another skillet ready. I was curious why we weren't spraying with Pam, but as you can see, it's turned out just fine. If you notice that like your tortilla is sticking to your skillet, you could always get the Pam out and spray that. No problem. So once it's brown on both sides, I will put it in my plate, and I can cut it up either using a pizza cutter or a knife, and then you guys can enjoy. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Cooking with Karla. Bye now.
Double wide quick stop, midnight tea top, Jack in her cherry coke town. Mama and Daddy put the roots right here, 'cause this is where the car broke down.